The Hourglass, Part 1. Hi everyone. My name is William Jacobs. Everyone calls me Billy. I am the CEO of the second largest home builder in Clearwater, Florida, where I currently reside. I was 35 years old when the events in this story took place, a little over 3 years ago. This is a story of love and loss. It's always hard for me to hear those words said aloud. By the time you hear the entire story, you'll understand why. This story starts like a lot of stories you hear on channels like this, with a brief look back in time. In our case, we will go back to when I was 23. I had just graduated from Florida State University with a bachelor's degree in architecture with a minor in mechanical engineering. I had just taken my first major job out of college and needed to open a bank account. On a balmy, late spring day in Clearwater, I headed to the Bank of America branch in my parents' neighborhood to accomplish that task. It was 10:40 in the morning. I was wearing jeans and a polo shirt with my employer's logo on it. A cowboy hat sat atop of my 6'3" 210-pound frame. I am trained as an architect and an engineer, but all through school I spent my summers working on home building crews as a laborer. I wanted to know the business from the ground up. As a result, I was always nicely tanned and very muscular. I had no trouble getting a date. As I was waiting for the next available teller, she walked up to me.
Hi there, cowboy. Have you been helped?
Her name was Carla Morton. At least that was what was on her name tag. She was simply a dream, 5'4" tall, 125 pounds. She had blonde hair, thin hips, D-cup breasts. She was wearing a gray pantsuit with a light pink blouse. Her black bra restrained her breasts effectively, but they still made their presence known. I was intrigued. No ma'am. I'd like to open up a checking account. I replied.
Excellent. I can help you with that. Follow me.
She proclaimed excitedly. And indeed, I followed her. Between the sweet scent of her perfume and the sight of her perfect hips flowing gently from side to side, I would have followed her off the side of a volcano that day if that's where she would have led me. Thankfully, she was only leading me to her office. Carla was the account manager, and at age 26, she was one of the youngest managers at Bank of America. She was 3 years older than me. Carla opened my account in no time. I also wasted no time asking her out. She agreed, and eventually we began dating. To make a very long story very short, we fell deeply in love and married 2 years after we first met in the bank lobby that day. Over the following 10 years, Carla and I built an incredible life together. We both experienced abundant professional success. In those 10 years, Carla rose through the ranks at Bank of America to become an assistant vice president and director of charitable giving for the entire southeast region of the United States. I also experienced success at my job. I helped my company grow from a medium-sized player in the home builder space to the 4th largest builder in the state of Florida. At the end of the 10-year period I just mentioned, I was chief architect and operations manager for the entire company. We were both making around $250,000 per year. About 6 months ago, we moved into a beautiful custom-built 5,000 square foot home in the swankiest suburb in our area. We were happy. I mean truly happy. We spent every minute possible together when we weren't working or pursuing our diverse personal interests. With all of that success, Carla and I were disappointed with only one area of our life together. Despite trying diligently for the last 5 years, we had not been able to get pregnant. Carla and I felt that having a child was the one thing we lacked to make our life together perfect. We tried everything. We both got tested extensively. The doctors determined that Carla and I were 2 young healthy people who should have had no problem conceiving a child. They told us to just keep trying. Of course, I had no problem with that, and neither did she. We loved to be together intimately. By that time, I was 35 and Carla was 38. The biological clock wasn't ticking, it was gonging like Big Ben in London. We both heard it. And then one day, it happened.
Honey, I need you to come home right away.
Carla said to me when she called me at work. I dropped everything I was working on and ran straight home. Are you okay, honey? I said as I came running into the house to find Carla weeping by our bedside. I immediately kneeled next to her and she fell into my arms. She still didn't tell me what was wrong. She just handed me a pregnancy test cartridge. It said that we were finally pregnant. Now I was weeping right along with her. Once we came to our senses, we decided to get in the car and go to Carla's OB/GYN to get the result confirmed. She agreed to squeeze Carla in for an appointment. After more than a few anxious minutes pacing in the doctor's waiting room, the nurse came to take me to Carla's examination room. We received fantastic news. The blood serum test confirmed the pregnancy. The doctor sat both of us down and gave us a realistic talk about the risks that pregnancy presents to a woman Carla's age. She advised both of us to take steps to ensure Carla is taking things as easy as possible. No heavy lifting, stress or vigorous exercise. She also advised us to keep our closeness gentle. She told us that Carla is healthy and has an excellent chance of carrying our baby to term. We also learned that Carla was about 6 weeks along. All of the therapies we were trying to get Carla pregnant caused havoc on her period schedule. So we were not alarmed if she was a little late from time to time. Carla and I were over the moon with happiness. I almost felt like we both floated all the way home from the doctor's office that day. We went to dinner that night. We also wanted to have closeness very badly, so we did, but very gently. The next day, we told our immediate families and our closest friends about our miracle baby. Everyone erupted in a synchronous cry of joy. The next 6 weeks went by like a whirlwind. By that time, Carla was 3 months along and our little one had developed quite a bit. We could hear the baby's cute little heartbeat. It sounded like a tiny Swiss watch. I put the baby's ultrasound images all over my desk area at work. Carla did too. We cleared out a room in our huge house to build the ultimate nursery suite complete with plush quarters for an in-house nanny, should we choose to go that way. Being the architect that I am, I naturally took to the work of getting the baby's space ready. Carla concentrated on her health. She was approved to work from home, delegated all of her travel to other people in her office and greatly reduced her overall workload. I have to say that both of us were feeling great and Carla was on the verge of beginning to show. Then one day, the call came that would change both of our lives forever. Carla's mother Catherine was calling. She asked Carla and I to come to St. Mary's Hospital right away. It was about Lucy, Carla's sister. Now I need to explain a little bit more about Carla's family. Generally, they are very nice people. They were middle class just like my own family. However, despite not possessing any of the traditional parameters that people use to claim privilege such as wealth, position or heritage, Carla's family was pretty stuck up and looked down on others that they considered as less privileged. Carla's mother, Catherine, was the ringleader. Every word that came out of her mouth dripped with condescension and aloofness. Lucy, Carla's only other sibling, had always been sickly. Due to a series of medical conditions that are not relevant to talk about here, Lucy was in need of a kidney transplant. One of her kidneys had already failed. Her remaining kidney was working at only about 70% and it was losing more function by the year. Carla's family had been aware of the transplant need for quite a while. However, Lucy had been able to get by with her one functioning kidney and medication. When Carla and I arrived at the hospital, we were greeted by Catherine. She led Carla and I into Lucy's room. She was weak, but in good spirits. After a few minutes of general socializing, Catherine asked me if I could wait outside of the room while she, Lucy and Carla talked. Of course, I agreed and stepped into the waiting room. After about 30 minutes, Carla came back out with a very concerned look on her face.
Lucy is sleeping now, honey. Let's go home.
On the drive home, she explained the situation to me.
Honey, the function level in Lucy's remaining kidney has reached an alarming low. She will need a transplant much sooner than we anticipated. A search will begin immediately. She is being added to the national transplant waiting list.
She explained. I understand, honey. How do her chances of finding a match look? I replied.
The next couple of weeks will be critical.
She replied.
We will get a status from the transplant team at the end of the week.
I asked her to keep me posted as we pulled back into our driveway. 4 days later, I arrived home and found Carla sitting on the couch in the living room, staring off into space.
Hi, honey, please sit down. We need to talk.
Carla said solemnly. I immediately started to think something was wrong with Carla's health. I sat down and she began.
Honey, Lucy's doctor sat down with us to go over the status of her transplant matching process.
What happened, honey? I asked.
The good news is that they believe that a match will eventually be found. They are estimating within the next 90 days. But there's a problem, honey.
What's that? I asked.
Lucy needs a kidney now, and I'm a match.
She replied. Well, I don't have any problem with you giving Lucy one of your kidneys, honey. Wouldn't dialysis keep her stable for about 5 months until our baby is born? I asked.
Yes, honey, that sounds reasonable. But Mom doesn't want Lucy to have to get a kidney stent. She said it would make her seem like a common person, especially when Lucy has a relative that could give her a kidney now.
Wait a minute, I said. So your mother is asking you to give Lucy a kidney now because of how she believes a kidney stent would look to others? I asked.
It's not like that.
she said.
She just wants to end Lucy's suffering and speed her recovery.
But you know what giving Lucy a kidney now would mean, don't you? I asked.
Yes, honey. I know that I will have to terminate our pregnancy in order to be eligible to donate a kidney.
She replied. Does your mother know and understand that fact?
Yes, honey. She does. Mom says we can always get another miracle baby. But we only have one Lucy.
She replied. So your mother wants us to kill our baby so that Lucy will not look like a commoner with a stent in her body. Knowing that there is a perfectly safe and sensible option that would deliver both Lucy a kidney and allow us to keep our baby? That is nonsense, Carla, and you know it.
My mom is convinced that Lucy will die without a kidney.
Carla replied. Only in her mind. It will be perfectly safe for Lucy to wait. I retorted. So what did you tell your mother? I asked.
I told her that I would talk to you tonight and let her know in the morning.
Wait, Carla. You're not telling me that you are actually considering this. Tell me you are not considering terminating our baby to satisfy one of your stuck-up mother's whims about not looking like common people. Catherine doesn't come from wealth, has no money, and is not in a position of any kind of privilege. Hell, her name is not even Catherine. It's Kathy on her birth certificate. Even her name drips of condescension. Carla, this is our baby we are talking about. A baby it took us over 5 long years to finally conceive. Please, you can't do this. Look, I'll get tested. And if I am a match, I will give Lucy a kidney.
I already looked into that possibility.
Carla replied.
And you would most likely be a match.
Okay, so why aren't we talking about me donating a kidney? I asked sincerely. Carla appeared to hesitate. Honey, what?
Mom doesn't want Lucy to have a kidney from a man.
Carla finally blurted out. Do I have to tell you how ridiculous that is? I asked her.
No, honey. I understand that kidneys are not gender specific. And before you ask, I explained that to Mom. But she won't budge. Honey, I'm tired and I'm going to rest now. I have heard you out fully. I will sleep on this and give you my decision tomorrow.
Carla stated flatly. Where do I come in? Isn't this our decision? I asked.
Yes, it is our baby inside of me, Billy. But it is being carried in my body. And therefore it is my choice. Good night.
Carla replied as she got up and retreated to our bedroom. I was speechless. Part 2. My wife had just told me that she was considering terminating our baby so that she can give a kidney to her sister. I understand that Lucy is very sick, but she has a couple of very viable alternatives. Lucy could go on dialysis. That would keep her stable until our baby is born. Carla could then give her a kidney. The other option would be for me to give her one of my kidneys right now once the match is confirmed. That option would potentially cure Lucy for life. Lucy's unreasonable mother refuses to consider either option, for ridiculous reasons. I gathered the things I would need for the next day and slept in one of our guest rooms that night. I was unable to sleep much. I kept praying that Carla would see the logic in my words and put a stop to her mother's madness. Around 3 a.m., I heard soft knocking on the guest room door. I then heard the knob turn, but I had locked the door. I acted as if I was asleep. Carla would have to wrestle with her mother's madness on her own. The next morning, I was up very early. I made coffee and got ready to head to work. I left the house early to give Carla more time to consider our conversation the previous night. I worked a half day and came home at noon. When I entered the house, I found Carla crying at the kitchen table. I came into the kitchen and sat down across from her. She didn't waste any time.
I'm giving Lucy my kidney in a month, Billy. I have an appointment to terminate our pregnancy in 10 days. This is my final decision.
Carla said flatly.
I love you, Billy. And I'm very sorry for doing this to you and our baby, but I cannot cross my mother. I hope that you understand, and I hope that in time you will agree to us trying for another baby.
With that, she got up and ran upstairs to our bedroom and locked the door. I felt like the floor opened up under my chair and all I could detect was a falling sensation. I can't tell you how long I sat there. My entire life flashed before me. When I finally came to my senses, I realized that my marriage was in serious trouble. If Carla would buy into her mother's crazy theories about life and family, I wasn't sure I wanted to stay with her. I left the house and went to a local restaurant for an early dinner. After that, I went home and immediately started packing my things to move permanently into our guest room. Carla was in the living room watching television. When she came upstairs and saw me packing up, she got upset.
Billy, why are you moving out of our room?
She asked. Your room, I replied as I continued packing.
Billy, I have to do this.
No, you don't, and you know that you don't. I immediately retorted.
We can still be together. I need your support. We can always have another baby. But I only have one sister and one mother. Please, Billy. I need you. I have to go for blood work at the clinic tomorrow to prepare for the termination procedure.
She pleaded. I gave her no response. I finished moving all of my things to the guest room and went to bed. All I could hear coming from Carla's room were her sobs. The next morning, I was determined to make a final plea to Carla to save our baby. I went downstairs and made coffee as usual. Just as I was making myself a cup, I heard a car roar up the driveway. It was Catherine. I then heard Carla walk down the back steps to the kitchen.
I'm going to get my blood work and mandatory counseling done before the termination procedure.
Carla said. Carla, I really need you to reconsider this course of action. I pleaded. Carla looked me dead in my eyes and slowly shook her head. After about 5 seconds, she turned her back on me and walked out of the back door. I then heard Catherine's car back out of our driveway and speed away. I can't tell you what it was, but the image of her smugly shaking her head at me and the thought of killing our child caused something in my heart and mind to snap. At that instant, I decided that I was going to fight back. I immediately left the house and went to my office. My boss, John Maxey, is one of the wealthiest men in Florida. He has deep connections in business, politics, and government. I went to see him. Florida has some of the strictest pregnancy termination laws in the United States. Maybe John can help me figure something out. I explained my situation to John.
Wow, Billy, I've heard some crazy theories on life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But this takes the cake. Your mother-in-law is my nominee for the Florida Kook of the Year award. Hang on, let me get Sharon in here.
John called Sharon Hall, our general counsel, to join our conversation. Sharon came in and we told her about my situation. After listening carefully and taking careful notes, she began to speak. First, she gave us all of the bad news.
Well, ultimately, Billy, you can't stop her from terminating the pregnancy.
She stated flatly.
You said she is about 12 weeks along, right?
She asked. Yes, I replied.
Well, the restriction on the procedure begins at 15 weeks here in Florida, so she has a limited window to act. After blood work and the mandatory counseling period, she will become eligible to complete the procedure just under the 15-week deadline. You said she was just getting that blood work done today.
She stated.
Maybe we could slow her down a bit. Is that possible?
John asked Sharon.
We would have to get creative.
She replied. Then Sharon turned her attention to me. She had a very serious look in her eyes.
Billy, I'm going to ask you some questions, and I need you to think about the answers very carefully.
Okay, I replied.
Do you love your wife?
She asked. Yes, I do, but I'm not sure that I can continue to love her after she does this. I replied.
Do you think there is any chance for you two to reconcile?
She asked. If she ends this termination madness, we will go right back to normal. If she goes through with this, then the answer is probably no.
Would you be comfortable if your situation with Carla became a national news story?
If it would stop her from terminating our child, yes. At this point, I'm more concerned about saving our baby than saving my relationship with Carla.
Okay, that is what I needed to know.
Sharon stated. She continued.
Billy, you're going to have to file an urgent petition for divorce. In that petition, you will need to specify your wife's intentions and ask the court to issue a temporary injunction forbidding Carla from terminating the pregnancy until a judge can rule on the matter. If you file in Pinellas County, you may draw an anti-termination judge who may be willing to dip their toes into uncharted waters and grant the injunction.
Sharon stated.
Run out the clock on him, huh?
John asked.
Yeah, it's the only way I can think of to possibly stop this. I can refer you to the best family lawyer in Pinellas County, Billy.
Sharon replied. That is a big swing, Sharon. Do you think it might work? I asked.
There are very few absolutes in the law, Billy.
Sharon said.
But all we would need to do is draw the right judge. I'll get you an appointment with Elizabeth Green. She is a fantastic family lawyer, and she is pro-life.
Sharon said, as she dialed Elizabeth Green on her cell.
Hi, Liz. I'm sending one of my colleagues over there with an emergency situation. Can you see him this morning? Great. I'll get him over there right now. Then I'll call you back and give you a full briefing so you will be prepared. Okay, thanks. Call me for lunch. Bye.
Sharon ended the call and then gave me Elizabeth Green's address. I drove the short 20-minute drive to her office. I arrived at 10:40 a.m. When I walked into Ms. Green's office, her receptionist showed me right in.
Mr. Jacobs, Elizabeth Green, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Elizabeth Green was a very pretty woman in her mid-50s. She was 5'5" with a full Coke bottle body figure. She had beautifully styled gray hair and piercing blue eyes. Thank you, ma'am. Please call me Billy. I replied.
Thank you, Billy. Please call me Liz.
She said in turn as we sat at her conference table.
Sharon already fully briefed me on your situation. I'm going to give it to you straight, Billy.
Please do, I encouraged her.
If your wife is hell-bent on terminating her pregnancy, she is going to be able to eventually terminate it. If not here in Florida, then in some other state whose laws are not as restrictive. But I think we can possibly accomplish 3 goals if we take the course of action that I'm about to propose. 1. You could buy some time to convince her to wait until your child is born to give her kidney to your sister-in-law. Or perhaps they will allow you to give her sister your own kidney. 2. We may be able to make a statement that will resonate with our state's lawmakers. That could result in legislation that would protect fathers' rights in a pregnancy. 3. I believe our actions will help the next husband that finds himself in your situation. What do you think?
She asked. Do you think we can slow her down? I asked.
Yes. If you file for divorce tomorrow and request an emergency injunction forbidding her from proceeding with the termination, as Sharon already explained, it will all depend on which judge we draw in Pinellas County. Does that make sense?
She asked. Yes. What else can I do? I'm in an impossible situation. I have nothing left to lose. Let's go for it, I replied.
A few warnings, Billy, before we take this leap together. We are going to be wading into an unprecedented area of the law. Because of that, this case is likely to become a national story. News organizations are going to want to talk to both you and Carla. Not everyone is going to agree with you. Some people will sympathize with Carla's position, and they will not be afraid to let you know it. News people following you everywhere, activists demonstrating in front of your house, and crazies ranting about you in the media. Do you think you can handle all of that, Billy?
She asked. If it means I have a snowball's chance in hell of convincing that crazy woman to not follow her even crazier mother, then yes, I can handle it, I replied.
I suggest that you take a leave of absence today from work. John already said you have several weeks of paid time that you need to use anyway.
Liz said. I looked up all of the financial information that Liz needed to see while I was there. I also printed copies of the documents she needed and then paid her retainer. Carla will be served with the divorce petition and emergency injunction filing tomorrow morning. I proceeded to the bank to divide our finances and cancel all of our joint credit cards. I then went home to enjoy one final night of relative peace and quiet before all hell breaks loose. Part 3. When I returned home at about 6 p.m. that evening, both Carla and Catherine were sitting in our living room waiting on me. I already knew how I was going to handle them. Hello, Carla. Hello, Catherine. I told both of them flatly.
Honey, Mom has come to try and talk some sense to you.
Carla stated with no feeling.
Billy, you just don't understand what it's like to be faced with losing a child.
Catherine stated with her usual smug, condescending tone. Of all of the ways I could have responded to her preposterous statement, laughter was the first thing that came out of me. A deep hearty laugh bubbled up from inside of me.
How dare you laugh at me? Do you know who I am?
As a matter of fact, I do. I know exactly who you are, lady. You are Kathy L. Morton, widow and mother of Carla Morton and Lucy Morton. You are a retired elementary school lunch lady, who acts like she's the goddamned Queen of Sheba and looks down on everyone around her. You live in a one-bedroom apartment in a government-subsidized retirement community. You drive a 15-year-old Saturn. A freaking Saturn, for crying out loud. Who drives a Saturn anymore? Oh, and I guess anyone would die to live on that $2,250 per month pension you get, huh? An amount like that would really propel one's social economic status into the stratosphere. And now for the real kicker. The same Kathy L. Morton also had the nerve to walk into my $1 million home, look down her crooked nose at me and tell me that I don't know what it's like to lose a child, when she has convinced my wife to kill a child that her and I had been trying for 5 years to conceive. This, in spite of, at least 2 very viable alternative options. Each option would save Lucy's life and ensure the birth of our baby, your grandchild. Will you take a minute to think, you crazy woman? Do you even listen to yourself? This shit is so crazy that it's hilarious. And newsflash, Kathy, you stuck-up cunt. You live at the poverty line, bitch. You have absolutely no right to look down your nose at anyone. The custodian that cleans Lucy's hospital room every day is living 3 times better than you. Now get the fuck out of my house, right now. You old, wrinkled up, arrogant, pompous, hypocritical bitch. I mean now. Catherine was in tears as she ran out of the house and to her car.
How could you say those things to my mother, you bastard?
Carla said as she moved to try and slap me. I gave Carla a look that said if she took one more step toward me, she would gravely regret it. I spoke the truth. And the truth hurts. Your mother is a hypocrite and a bully. It was beyond time for someone to finally put her in her place. And if you don't like it, you can get the fuck out too. But I can't make you leave. I know this though. Pregnant or not, you are not going to put your hands on me. I said with a conviction that Carla had never heard from me before. Every muscle in my body was as tight as a rubber band, ready to release all of its potential energy at the slightest touch. And she could see that. The look in Carla's eyes then changed from red-hot anger to genuine fear. She retreated in tears and locked herself in her bedroom. It was only 6:45 p.m. My mission was accomplished. Now I had the rest of the evening to myself to relax and enjoy the calm before the storm. This was about to get really loud and ugly. I could feel it. The next morning, I showered in the guest bath, dressed and was in the kitchen having coffee when Carla timidly came down the steps.
Good morning, honey.
Carla said, hesitantly.
I want to apologize for trying to ambush you with my mother last night. She was just...
I held up my hand. Skip it, Carla. I stated flatly, you've made your choice. I still hope that you might see that there are other viable ways to save Lucy and change your mind about terminating our baby. But I am prepared to fight you on this, all the way to hell and back, I stated.
What are you talking about, Billy? It's my decision. I've made my mind up and you can't stop me.
She stated smugly, her voice condescending. All of her bravado had returned. Then the doorbell rang. Go ahead. It's for you, I stated. She looked at me questionably and then headed for the door to answer it. A well-dressed woman holding a leather briefcase was standing on the porch.
Hi, I am looking for Carla Morton Jacobs. Are you her?
She asked.
Yes, I am she.
Carla said.
May I see a picture ID?
The lady asked. Carla retrieved her ID and gave it to the woman. The woman then handed her a large yellow envelope.
Carla Morton Jacobs, you have been served with a court summons from the Pinellas County, Florida Family Court. The summons includes an injunction for emergency relief and a temporary restraining order that prohibits you and one Kathy L. Morton from coming within 500 feet of Mr. William Jacobs. Please consult an attorney if you have any questions after reviewing the documents. Have a great day.
The woman then turned around and left. Carla was stunned. She then ran back into the kitchen.
What are you up to, you bastard?
She hissed. Read the papers, pack your shit and get the fuck out of this house. Then get a lawyer. He or she can explain all of the papers to you. My lawyer's contact info is in the package. I'm going out and will return in 1 hour. Be gone by the time I get back, or I will call the police to remove you. Carla was trying to say something. Her lips were moving but no sound was coming out. I then walked past her, grabbed my keys and left. I went to the local diner for breakfast and returned to the house. Carla was gone when I returned. A good amount of her clothes and all of her bathroom items were also gone. I had a locksmith come out to change all of the locks and reprogram the garage opener. I then tried to relax for the rest of the day. Liz called me early the next morning.
Billy, we just received our judge assignment. We drew the Honorable Kenneth O'Sullivan as our judge. He will be hearing the injunction motion as well as the divorce case.
Liz stated. Is that good or bad? I asked.
It could be good.
She replied.
Judge O'Sullivan is a staunch pro-life Republican, but we can never know exactly how he will rule. He is bound by Florida law. But I have additional news. Carla has hired a lawyer. His name is Donald Williams, and he is a real shark. Our work is going to be cut out for us, but don't worry about that. I'll deal with Mr. Williams. Judge O'Sullivan has set a hearing on the temporary injunction for tomorrow morning at 10:40 a.m. Meet me at my office at 8:30 a.m. so we can go over our petition before the hearing. Until then, try to take it easy.
Liz said. I agreed to everything and we ended the call. When I arrived at Liz's office at 8:30 a.m. the next morning, she showed me the response that Mr. Williams had filed on Carla's behalf.
They are opposing the divorce petition on the grounds of irreconcilable differences. They requested counseling and marriage intervention before a divorce should be considered. She is requesting that the restraining order be lifted and that she be allowed to return home. She stated that she was pregnant and needed to be in the marital home. She also asked the judge to make you leave your home and that she be allowed to move back while the divorce petition was pending.
Wow, I told Liz. So, she never mentioned anything about termination.
Right. She probably didn't tell her attorney.
Liz agreed. She was so obsessed with countering the action that I took against her. She's so obsessed with winning that she didn't even tell the judge she intends to terminate the pregnancy so she can give her sister one of her kidneys. I replied.
Don't sweat it. I just wanted you to see her reply. Let's get over to the courthouse.
Part 4. When we arrived in the courtroom, I saw Carla, Mr. Williams, and Catherine sitting at their table talking quietly. The hearing started promptly at 10:40 a.m. The bailiff called our case and Judge O'Sullivan took the bench.
Good morning, everyone. We are here this morning to adjudicate a request for injunctive relief regarding a pending divorce action. I have already read all of your briefs. Ms. Green, please proceed.
The judge said as he nodded toward Liz.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Liz replied.
My client, Mr. William Jacobs, has filed an emergency divorce petition and a petition for injunctive relief. He filed this action upon learning that Mrs. Carla Jacobs was planning to terminate their baby, of which Mr. Jacobs is the father, without a just cause. As a result of this action, Mr. Jacobs feels that the marriage has been irreparably broken. He is requesting an injunction barring Mrs. Jacobs from following through with a pregnancy termination until a full hearing can be scheduled by the court on the application's merits.
Thank you, Miss Green.
The judge remarked.
Mr. Williams, please proceed.
Attorney Donald Williams then presented Carla's side of the case. He requested immediate relief from all restraining orders for both her and her mother, occupancy of the marital home, and a reasonable amount of temporary spousal support. He urged the court to deny the injunction requested by Mr. Jacobs, as the termination of the pregnancy is not in the court's purview. When Williams finished, the judge spoke.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. I would like for Mrs. Jacobs to be sworn in, please.
Judge O'Sullivan stated flatly.
Of course, Your Honor.
Williams stated as he motioned for Carla to take the stand. In family court, the presiding judge often questions witnesses directly. After being sworn in, Judge O'Sullivan began to question her.
Mrs. Jacobs, the court has heard from both sides of this matter. I have a few questions for you. In the brief that Mr. Williams filed, you state that you are currently pregnant, and, because of that fact, you should be given preference as to who occupies the marital home until the divorce action is fully adjudicated. Is that fair?
The judge asked Carla.
Yes, Your Honor. All of that is correct.
Carla responded.
The court walked into this hearing under that impression. However, upon hearing testimony from Mrs. Green and Mr. Williams, a different narrative has emerged. Mrs. Jacobs, is the court correct in what it heard this morning about your intentions to terminate your pregnancy?
Yes, Your Honor. My sister needs a kidney, and I am the only viable match. I cannot just sit and allow her to die.
Carla stated confidently.
Did you just decide this morning that you would terminate your pregnancy?
No, Your Honor. I informed my husband a few days ago that I would be terminating our pregnancy in order to become eligible to donate my kidney to my sister. A few days later, he filed for divorce, got a restraining order against me, and filed for an injunction to keep me from terminating my baby to save my sister. He also kicked me out of our home.
Carla said through crocodile tears.
Thank you, Mrs. Jacobs. You may step down now.
The judge said.
Miss Green, the court would like to swear in Mr. Jacobs.
Liz motioned for me to take the stand, and I moved to the witness position in the dock. The bailiff swore me in, and the judge began his questioning.
Mr. Jacobs, your wife told the court the circumstances of you being informed of her intention to terminate her pregnancy with you in order to donate a kidney to her sister. Does what she told the court match your recollection?
The judge asked. Yes, Your Honor. The circumstances behind her informing me are accurate. However, there are several facts that the court does not know.
Go ahead.
The judge said.
Objection, Your Honor.
Carla's attorney chimed in.
The information Mr. Jacobs is about to give is uncorroborated and not supported by medical evidence.
Well, that is an interesting observation, Mr. Williams, seeing as though he hasn't said anything yet. Have you turned into Nostradamus or something?
No, Your Honor. We just feel that we have an idea of what he might say.
Williams noted.
Well, I think it would be best to hear what he actually has to say before determining how relevant the information is. Objection overruled. Continue, Mr. Jacobs.
The judge ordered. Your Honor, there are a number of viable alternatives to save Lucy Morton's life that fall short of needing to terminate Carla's pregnancy. I stated.
Such as?
The judge replied. Your Honor, first and foremost, I really love and support Lucy. I want her to have a full recovery. Carla will give birth in less than 5 months. Lucy's remaining kidney is still functioning at 70%. Dialysis support would keep her healthy as she waited for Carla to give birth and prepare to donate her kidney. In addition, I am a match for Lucy and am willing to donate my kidney to her right now with no problem. I am healthy and my recovery from the surgery would take just a few weeks.
Have you expressed your willingness to support your wife's sister in the manner you described?
The judge asked. Yes, Your Honor. However, my offers were rejected. I replied.
Why?
The judge asked.
Objection.
Williams piped up again.
Overruled.
The judge snapped back.
Answer, please, Mr. Jacobs.
I could hear Carla quietly sobbing as I spoke to the judge. My mother-in-law, Kathy L. Morton, does not want Lucy to receive a kidney from a man. I calmly replied. An audible gasp was heard all over the courtroom.
Did I hear you correctly, Mr. Jacobs? Your mother-in-law does not want your sister-in-law to receive a kidney from a male donor.
Yes, Your Honor, I confidently replied.
I'm going to excuse you for now, Mr. Jacobs. You may step down now.
the judge said as he looked over his glasses.
The court calls Kathy L. Morton.
The judge bellowed. Catherine turned as white as a ghost as she slowly rose and walked gingerly to the stand. You see, accountability is not something that Catherine has experienced much of in her life. After being sworn in, the judge began his questioning.
Mrs. Morton, you are the mother of both Carla Morton Jacobs and Lucy Morton, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Are you aware of Mr. Jacobs' ability to help your daughter Lucy with a kidney transplant?
The judge asked directly.
Yes, Your Honor.
She replied sheepishly.
Is the reason you gave Mr. Jacobs for refusing his kidney for your daughter accurate? Did you really say that you didn't want your daughter to have a kidney from a male?
Catherine turned red as a beet with embarrassment.
Yes, Your Honor.
She whispered quietly into the microphone.
Please explain your reason behind that statement, Miss Morton.
The judge asked. After struggling to find any words to justify her ridiculous position on the subject, Catherine folded like a card table.
I have no reasoning, Your Honor.
She embarrassingly admitted.
Is your daughter Lucy aware that a kidney is available to her right now? A kidney that would release your other daughter from having to terminate her pregnancy to donate hers?
The judge asked.
Yes, she is. But until she recovers, I am making all of her medical decisions.
Catherine replied.
I see. You are excused, Miss Morton. You may step down.
The judge replied. After Catherine stepped down and shuffled back to her seat with her tail between her legs, the judge addressed everyone.
Folks, this is a very hairy ball of wax that we are dealing with here. I am retiring to my chambers to deliberate. I will render my decision this afternoon at 2 p.m. in this courtroom. All parties are to be present.
He then banged his gavel and we all left the courtroom. How do you think it went? I asked Liz.
It's hard to predict.
Liz responded.
The judge is not going to like the fact that Carla misled the court about her intentions to terminate her pregnancy while asking for the pregnancy to be considered in giving her the marital home. And Catherine, wow, he was really blown back by her, I think.
Liz and I went to have lunch. At 2 p.m., we all gathered back into the courtroom. Judge O'Sullivan took the bench and launched straight into his ruling.
This is going to be a complex case. The element that makes it complex is not the divorce part. People get divorced every day. Mrs. Jacobs, I am troubled by the duplicity that you have shown this court in presenting yourself as a soon-to-be mother who was blindsided by her husband's sudden decision to file for divorce. The testimony delivered in this courtroom earlier today has proven that is not the case. While the fact that Mr. Jacobs filed for divorce may have been a surprise to you, the circumstances of the disagreement between you and he were very well known to you. All parties were also aware of your intention to terminate your pregnancy in order to become eligible to donate a kidney to your sister. I am going to dispense rulings as they relate to the divorce action first. First, the marital home will continue to be occupied by Mr. Jacobs. The court is not pleased with Mrs. Jacobs' actions in trying to pull a fast one on that matter. Mr. Williams, you had better hope that you had no knowledge of Mrs. Jacobs' intention to terminate her pregnancy. However, I will leave that matter for the State Bar's disciplinary committee to look into. I see here that Mr. Jacobs has already distributed 1/2 the marital liquid assets to Mrs. Jacobs. A substantial amount. Do the parties agree that the distribution is acceptable?
Everyone at both tables nodded.
Okay. So we got that out of the way. Both parties are very gainfully employed. No support orders are being issued at this time. I am going to set the divorce case for a status conference in 8 weeks. In the meantime, I would like for both Mr. and Mrs. Jacobs to meet with a court-approved counselor for a minimum of 8 sessions. There's a lot of rash action going on here. When you return in 8 weeks, I am hopeful that cooler heads will prevail by then. I'm going to keep the restraining orders in place just for now. I may revisit that issue in 8 weeks or earlier, upon request from Mr. Jacobs. Okay, so that's the divorce side of this. Now, as for the injunction, while the issue at the bar is urgent, the court cannot determine what level of jurisdiction it may or may not have in dispensing with Mr. Jacobs' request to prohibit his wife from terminating her pregnancy. This court feels that this particular issue would be best resolved by the Superior Court section. In the meantime, I am placing a temporary injunction that enjoins Mrs. Jacobs from seeking pregnancy termination care while this matter is pending. Mrs. Jacobs, in plain English, that means that you cannot terminate your pregnancy until the Superior Court lifts this injunction. All Florida medical providers are covered under this ruling. We will expedite the case to get this before a Superior Court judge in the general civil section. We will work to get on the Superior Court's calendar within 10 days. In the meantime, I very strongly encourage Mr. and Mrs. Jacobs to try and find a way to resolve their dispute short of court intervention. Good luck.
He then banged his gavel and left the bench. Part 5. I could hear Carla openly sobbing at the defense table across the courtroom. I was dazed, like a huge bomb had just gone off. Did we win? I asked Liz.
Yes and no. I'm sure they will be lacing up their track shoes, to run to the Court of Appeals before tomorrow morning to get that injunction lifted. But you did get the house.
Liz replied. Just then, Mr. Williams tapped Liz on the arm and asked her for a quick word. Liz excused herself and stepped aside to speak with him. When she returned, she had a puzzled look on her face. "What's up?" I asked.
They want to talk tomorrow morning.
Liz replied. "What about?" I asked.
Not sure. Go home and get some rest. It's been a long day. Be at my office at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Liz replied. I did as I was told and went home to rest. As I was settling down after dinner, my phone rang. It was the hospital. I answered.
Billy, it's Lucy. Please don't hang up.
"Hello, Lucy. How are you feeling?" I asked.
I'm hanging in there.
She replied. "This is awkward, Lucy. I'm not sure I should even be talking to you right now. But I'm here. What can I do for you?" I replied.
Thank you, Billy.
She said in a weak but determined voice.
Billy, I never wanted to break up your marriage to Carla. I would gladly accept your kidney, and I told my mother that, but she will not listen. She's on this stupid kick about not mixing gender parts.
I see, Lucy. Your mother was embarrassed royally and on the record regarding that point this morning by the judge in court. Maybe that experience will soften her stance. I replied.
I also heard about you telling her off when she came to your house. Good for you for standing up to her, Billy. I was always irritated by my mother's aloofness. She has no reason to be a snob.
Lucy stated. Lucy, is there any way you can get control of your health decisions back? Then I could just donate you my kidney and there would be nothing Catherine or Carla could do to stop it. I'm beginning to think Carla wants to terminate our baby no matter what. I stated.
Don't think that for a second, Billy. Carla wants to be your wife forever. She also wants to be the mother of your kids. My mother pressured her into taking this course of action because she has no patience and cannot wait for anything, including waiting for Carla to give birth.
Lucy replied. I have some sympathy for both you and Carla, but your mother is insufferable. I told her, I feel that Carla cut me out of the final decision. She treated me like I had no say. I cannot imagine having a productive life partnership with someone like that. We are 100% partners, until we aren't, depending on the situation. I won't live my life like that, Lucy. I explained to her.
I definitely understand that, Billy. Is there any chance that the marriage could be saved?
She asked sincerely. Yes, to be honest. Her attorney has requested a meeting with my attorney and I in the morning. Everything depends on what happens at that meeting. If Carla shows remorse and retreats from her plans to terminate our baby, then I will agree to be an enthusiastic participant in the court-ordered counseling. I believe counseling may resolve the relationship dynamic issues that we are having and prepare us for a good future together. I believe we have a great shot at reconciling in that case. She could immediately come home and I will immediately donate my kidney to you. Everyone wins. What do you think? I asked Lucy. I heard her sobbing quietly on the other end of the line.
It's a truly beautiful proposal, Billy.
She said through evident tears.
I'm gonna call both Carla and Mother to the hospital tonight for a serious talk. Thanks for taking my call, Billy. I'll update you as soon as I can.
Lucy replied hopefully. Thanks, Lucy. I hope you can get through to them. Good luck and feel better. I told her before we ended the call. I had a mostly peaceful sleep that night. I arrived at Liz's office right on time at 9 a.m. Soon after that, Carla and Mr. Williams walked in. Catherine was not present. Maybe she was still licking her wounds from court yesterday morning. Either way, I was glad that she wasn't there. After we all settled into Liz's conference room, Liz began the meeting.
Thanks for coming by, Dawn. It's a pleasure to see you again, Mrs. Jacobs. Since you requested this meeting, please proceed.
Thanks, Liz. My client is requesting a private conference with Mr. Jacobs.
Mr. Williams stated. Liz waited a beat or two and then looked my way. She was seeking a non-verbal response. In a split second I considered the conversation that I had with Lucy the previous night. That swayed my decision. I gave Liz a slight nod.
Okay, Dawn. Let's grab some coffee at the cafe next door.
Mr. Williams looked at Carla. She nodded in agreement.
Okay, Liz. Carla, we will be right next door if you need us.
And with that, both Liz and Mr. Williams got up and left the conference room, leaving Carla and I alone for the first time in a couple of weeks. As soon as they left the office, I began. You requested this meeting. You can begin. I stated flatly.
I love you, Billy.
Carla began.
And I sincerely apologize for my behavior the last few weeks. I had a heart-to-heart meeting with Lucy and my mother last night. Between you telling my mother off at the house a while back and Judge O'Sullivan making a fool out of her in open court yesterday morning, I have seen her for who she really is. She manipulated me, Billy. She made me feel as though donating my kidney right now was the only way to resolve Lucy's condition. Obviously, between you and the judge, Mom's ridiculous assertions about gender-specific kidneys are a dead issue now. Lucy has executed paperwork taking control of her medical care for my mother. Mom no longer has any say in her medical outcomes. I also told my mother that she will not be welcomed back into my life until she issues an in-person, sincere, and full-throated apology to you.
Carla took a break to see if I wanted to interject anything or ask a question. I was in total shock. Did you really say that to her? I asked sincerely.
Yes, I did. Billy, I have been thinking about everything. When I went to the clinic for my termination procedure blood work, I had an epiphany. I was about to kill a miracle. Really, 2 miracles. Our baby and our marriage. To me, both are miracles. Billy, you were willing to risk everything and sacrifice anything to keep me from making the biggest mistake of my life. My boneheaded desire to be right about everything almost gave me the energy to go through with killing a miracle baby just to prove a point. To prove that I could. Your courage has prevailed, Billy. I will not terminate our baby. If you are still willing, Lucy will accept your kidney.
She said through heavy tears. Wow, Carla, I really don't know what to say. I said, holding back tears myself.
Say that your boneheaded idiot for a wife can come home. Can you find it in your heart to forgive me, honey?
She said very emotionally. For a few moments, I was at total loss for words. I never thought this meeting would go like this. I was prepared to negotiate and make her pay dearly for terminating our baby. I finally found my words. We need counseling, Carla, I said as she nodded in agreement from across the table. You did initially speak to me about the prospect of giving your kidney to Lucy. And to be fair, you did hear me out. But you cut me out of the final decision, Carla. You decided unilaterally that you would kill our baby to save Lucy. You knew that you didn't have to, but you were determined to do it anyway. Your mom was manipulating you, but you made the active decision to defy me and kill our baby, Carla. You can come home, but I will move into the guest room for a while, and I want to start counseling this week. I replied.
Yes, honey, I agree, but I want you back in our bed as soon as possible.
Carla replied.
What about this whole divorce mess?
Carla asked. I will tell Liz to immediately dismiss the injunction and lift all of the restraining orders. But the divorce case will be left in place. The judge wants to see us in 8 weeks. That's how long we have to see if the counselor can get us through the communication and trust issues that brought us to this point in the first place. I love you too, Carla, but you chose your mother over your husband with our miracle baby on the line. I am very glad that you finally saw through your mother's intentions and put an end to this termination madness. I'm hopeful we can emerge from this process in 8 weeks stronger as a couple. If we fail to make progress through counseling, then we can just finalize our divorce and become effective co-parents. I replied.
I agree.
Carla said. When will you be home? I asked.
Tonight.
Okay, I will have a new set of keys and a new garage door opener ready for you, I told her. Just then, Liz and Mr. Williams returned. We advised them of our decision. Liz got busy filing the paperwork to dismiss the injunction and lift the restraining orders. Both she and Mr. Williams were pleased that we were going to take a shot at reconciliation. As I drove home from Liz's office that morning, I reflected on my conversation with Lucy and my talk with Carla. Then I thought about our baby. I was overcome with emotion. I was going to be a father. As I drove by the hospital, I decided to stop and see Lucy. She was thrilled with the news. I also met with Lucy's transplant team so we could start arranging her transplant. We agreed that the surgery would happen the next Friday, in 10 days. Lucy was weak, but hopeful. Before I left, I had to ask, Lucy, what did you tell Carla that made her do such an about-face? I asked.
I told her if she killed her baby to save me, both she and I would be punished. Just then, I experienced a code blue and nearly died last night.
I was amazed. I guess miracles do happen. Epilogue. About a week after the events in this story, I underwent surgery to donate one of my kidneys to Lucy. It was an absolute success and both Lucy and I made full recoveries. I was back on my feet in a few weeks. Carla waited on me hand and foot the entire time of my recovery. Carla and I successfully completed marriage counseling within the 8-week window. We both learned a lot during that process. We both are now much better at listening to each other and making sure neither of us is isolated when making major decisions. About 5 months after that, Carla and I welcomed a perfectly healthy 6-pound 13-ounce baby girl. We named her Alexis Lucy Morton Jacobs, in honor of Lucy. Without her intervention, Carla and I may have ended up divorced and baby Lexi would have likely not came to be. It took until 2 weeks before little Lexi was born, but Catherine finally delivered the required apology to rejoin the family. I'm not sure how much of it was her being truly sorry and how much of it was just her making sure she got to see her granddaughter. Either way, she apologized. I bet the welt marks that Judge O'Sullivan left on her ego in court that day are still there. Lucy eventually married and had 2 kids of her own. She is fully recovered, healthy and very happy. Carla and I followed up with William Jr., 18 months after Lexi was born. If you remember earlier, I told you this story was about love and loss. I truly love Carla with all of my heart. I love her more today than I ever did during the time that the terrible events in this story happened. Oh, the loss part. That's easy. When Carla shook her head at me that day in our kitchen indicating that she had decided to terminate our baby, I felt the most tremendous sense of loss that I ever felt in my life. It took a miracle, but for once in these stories, a dream life that turned into a nightmare actually turned back into a dream. Carla, Lexi, Billy Jr., and I thank you for listening to our story. The end. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, share and follow Ace of Hearts-Storycast.